Welcome to Beyond the Break, a podcast where we dive deep into the stories behind today's entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers, and we uncover what it takes to build something that lasts. Let's get started. Beyond the Break.
All right, Price Wheeler, you ready for Beyond the Break?
Ready.
All right, well, Thank you. Good day to everybody. Welcome. We've got an amazing story, one I guarantee you've never heard before, and Price Wheeler is here to tell it today, and it's a background of overcoming adversity, taking on challenges that most of us can't even fathom, and I can't wait to talk with you today, so welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
So, Price, just getting right to it, I really want to hear about your training in the military and the Navy SEAL training, which is so amazing. But what led you to that path? I believe you were in college first, right?
Yep.
So tell us a little bit of background.
Yeah. So I guess what originally, dating back to growing up in Virginia Beach. So grew up in a very heavy presence of a Navy town, and of course one of the main points where bases where the SEALs were stationed. We had the ordinary kind of regular SEAL teams, the even numbers, 2, 4, 8, so on and so forth, and then we had the prestigious SEAL Team 6.
Okay.
So that was very heavily involved in Virginia Beach growing up, and knowing that was there, and kind of always had a desire to serve. And at that point, young and in high school, didn't know into what branch, and so was looking at every single one: the Army, the Coast Guard, the Navy, you name it. But everything kept leading back to, okay, I grew up in a Navy town with a bunch of SEALs and a bunch of Navy people in and around, and so I ended up going to college first, against my will. So when I got out of high school, I told my dad, I said, hey, I want to enlist into the Coast Guard. I want to jump out of helicopters. And I was a big surfer. Yeah. And he's like, nope, you got to go to college first, and then tell me that you want to join the military. So I was like, okay, I've got to pass this rung. So went into college, came down here to go to Flagler.
Why do you think he wanted you to go that path? I
think, his dad was in the Navy. He was a translator way back when. And but he was always in business and in corporate and doing real estate, and that was what he had sought out for me to do, was to follow in his footsteps, and that was the hope. And he had a very successful his own business, and he wanted me to come in and work up underneath him, but I had no desire to do that at that time. And so he said, you've got to go to college first, and then
so it gives you more options, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Instead of going right out of high school. And that was always right. Is you go to college, there's no question. This is the next path. You have to get a diploma. You have to get a degree. Okay. And then we'll talk about it. And of course, definitely more options and more wisdom and life experience going through it.
All right. So were you ROTC in college? Or?
No, nothing.
Okay. So you graduate college.
Yep. Came down here to go to Flagler to join the surf team. So nothing to do with the military whatsoever. Yes. Yeah. It was a 4-year vacation.
It's a perk of Flagler. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I found it in a surfing magazine. I was like, that's where I want to go.
That's great. Great recruiting.
Yes.
That is.
But so and probably about my junior year, I was very close to dropping out. Called my parents and I was like, this is not what I want to do. I want to take a different path, and I'm kind of, I want to go into the military, and said, nope, you've got to finish. You've started this. You cannot quit. You have to finish what you started. And that was always, instilled in me from a very young age, going to baseball and football and all the different sports. If we started something, of course, we had to finish it.
I love that. That's so important.
So after graduating Flagler, I go to my parents. I'm like, okay, it's time. I've met the requirement. I've gone to school. I still want to join the military. And that's where then my dad said, not quite yet. Hold your horses. You're going to come work with me for a year, for 12 months. And then after this 12-month kind of exploratory phase within his company and working through all the divisions, then tell me you want to join the military.
Wow.
So I went and worked with him, commercial real estate, acquisitions, development, property management, leasing, all the different facets that they worked in within commercial real estate. 12 months ends, and I want to join the military. It's like, you know what? We've got a great opportunity for you in New York City to do an internship at an investment banking firm that they have been working with. You can't pass it up. You have to do this. He's like, go do this internship.
So now you have all these options.
Yeah. Wow. So it's really setting the path, and making sure that we did have options, wherever life led us at that point. We had options, and we had experience, and we had connections.
That's amazing.
So very grateful for every step of the way. And there was a method method to the madness that, of course, me being stubborn in my early 20s didn't quite see at that point in time.
Oh, that's where we have parents for that.
Right. Yes. But so went up to New York City, worked for a boutique investment banking firm, internship for 6 months. And I think that's where it really hit home of just living that lifestyle in New York City and saying there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life. There's a deeper meaning. I feel like I have a bigger calling, a bigger purpose to find here. So I said, you know what, Dad? I've done everything. I went to college. I graduated high school. I went to college. I worked for you for 12 months. I did this investment banking internship for 6 months. I'm done.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to the recruiter's office. And so that's, he said, okay, you've done everything that I've asked.
Yeah.
You've met all of my requirements and I will release you into the wild now.
Well, think how fortunate you were to have a dad who cared that much. Right?
Yeah,
he really
absolutely.
was trying to build a foundation for you so you had options and could lead you in any direction, which, it obviously did. So that, that was great. It probably wasn't things you agreed with along the way.
Yeah.
But now looking back, it sounds like you appreciate it.
Eternally grateful. And it was funny, so I was looking at all the different, and growing up in Virginia Beach and the Navy SEAL town, call it, big presence there. That's what I wanted to do. And so a little reverse psychology with my dad. He goes, so you're going to quit.
Oh.
He's like, you're going, you're not going to make it. This is, there's no question. You're not tough enough. Yeah. So check, got it. Yeah. Challenge accepted.
All right.
So went through, kind of that entire process. You go into a delayed entry program under what they call a SEAL contract, to go straight into that program.
Okay.
And so you start to spend time in your hometown doing all of what they call these PSTs, these physical standard testing of running, swimming, pull-ups, push-ups, squats, all the above. And they start to then skim off the top of the pool, the top performers. Okay. And then your ticket gets pulled, your number gets called. So we went through this delayed entry process for a handful of months and training, working out, kind of getting ready, preparing.
Is this on your own or through?
On our own. Yeah. Or so you're meeting, you're going at these routine times. I think it was once a month where you would go and you would test, you would do the runs, you would do this, and you'd record your scores. And so, but outside of that, you were on your own.
Wow.
So all different, keeping up, nutrition, working out, exercising, sleep is all on your own. I was lucky, again, being in a military town. There was a program that was at the local Little Creek base in Virginia Beach where they were helping guys that were in the regular fleet, in the regular Navy, train up, who had gotten a SEAL contract. Okay. And it was basically pool time. So we would go to the pool and we would do drown proofing. We would do laps back and forth. And then also they would get together on call it a Sunday morning and do a beach run up by Fort Story and do a 4-mile timed beach run. And then we'd all go grab breakfast at somebody's house after.
All right. Wow.
So there was some loosely, some guardrails around it where they would help. But after that, it was all on your own. So ultimately your number gets called and they're said, okay, you're ready for boot camp. We're going to send you to traditional Navy boot camp to learn how to be a sailor. And in that, we have a separate kind of division that you're going to be going into where you're going to start doing some workouts that we put you through every morning. So we would go to the pool and we'd swim and we'd do other things. But really you're going through the traditional Navy boot camp, but under this separate division of in that SEAL contract.
So how'd you feel at that point?
Ready.
Okay.
Yeah, very ready. And that's what,
it's been like a loaded spring.
You're ready to go.
Building up for this, and then now it's right on the
it's so hard mentally. That part was so hard because you're like, I just want to be in Coronado. I just want to be in first phase. I want to be at Buds, and I'm going through Navy training. Oh yeah. This is and you're thinking to yourself at that time, none of this applies to me. I'm above. I'm going through SEAL training. Oh yeah. Well, you're learning all about the ships, tying knots, firefighting, which was really cool. And doing a lot of really great things, but you're ready. So you're like, get me out of here. I want to go to California. I want to go to Coronado. I want to be on that beach, and I want to go through the test.
And it must be an amazing group of people you're with because they're all like-minded and so motivated.
Yes, yeah. And when you get to that point too, and then there's multiple rungs to pass after that, but everybody's physically capable. Yeah. Everybody has met the standards to qualify, and then also some aptitude tests, the ASVAB. You've met minimum requirements, minimum standards to at least get punched the first ticket.
Okay.
But we had guys that were from the NFL. We had Olympic swimmers, and they'd show up, and of course they'd have the tattoo Olympic rings on them, and we'd pick them out, and so you're going to quit pretty quickly.
Swimming's important.
But truly, all walks of life, all across the country, guys with PhDs, 2 masters, and even those guys were enlisting into the Navy too. And so that's where of course college degree, you can go in through the officer candidate school route, or you can go enlisted. Chose to go enlisted for a variety of reasons, and had a really great best friend growing up, and his dad was a very highly decorated SEAL captain. Went to the Naval Academy, was a rower, spent his whole career in the military, a lot of it spent at Dam Neck at SEAL Team 6. And he said, if I were to do it all over again, I would go enlisted.
Really?
Yes.
Because that's what's interesting about the SEALs is when they're in the team, when they're in that boat, you've got the officers and the enlisted all doing the same jobs, which is not like the rest of the military, right? It's typically a little more managerial, different separation.
Yeah, when you're on the log and you're under a boat, everybody is equal. You have the officer in charge. You have the one officer of that boat crew who is kind of calling the shots, or maybe calling cadence, but at any point in time, everybody is collectively there, and if that officer, they'd get highlighted from an instructor if they were underperforming or falling behind, and then an enlisted guy would pick up and really help lead the team.
So everybody's doing equally grueling physical demands, the same thing. So
exactly.
That's unique about the SEALs,
for
sure.
Absolutely.
So then where did you go next?
So after that, so we graduate 8 weeks of boot camp, and then they send you, kind of call it across the street in Chicago, to a preparatory school specific to the SEAL program. So it was really cool to be a part of this program and in this prep school, where we had some of the best running coaches in the country that were there teaching us. We had the best strength and conditioning coaches that were there teaching us.
Wow.
We had the best swimming coaches in the country. We had some psychologists that were there talking about mental fortitude and different types of breathing techniques, and just really, it felt like being a D1 athlete, or maybe somewhere in the NFL Combine and some type of professional sports teams, where it was just your life, your existence for that next 8 weeks was nutrition, working out, getting better, getting faster, bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Love that.
So that was a really cool time. And then of course, as we got further along in those 8 weeks, we got liberty. We got some freedom to go out and run around Chicago, downtown, which was a lot of fun. So it was a great experience after that 8 weeks. But during that entire time, and even in boot camp too, you're still passing certain milestones and certain tests to punch your ticket to the next test, to the next phase. So after that 8 weeks, you have kind of a final closeout of testing, of physical tests that you have to meet. And at that point, that's your golden ticket to Coronado.
All right.
Yes. And they fly you out there. And that's where the show is starting. The show is beginning.
And that's just, you're not a SEAL yet.
No, not even close.
A bud?
Yeah, exactly. You're just, we had one guy who was hilarious. You're the scum. Yeah, right? You're the scum on the bottom of my boot. This is all you are. This is all, you're a number.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You must go from the highs to the lows so quickly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And they definitely put you in your place. That's for sure. They make you, understand that this is, it's, when you sit before the boards too, of getting further into the story, but, rolling back in a second try, why do you deserve to be here? Yeah. I don't deserve anything. It's you're very lucky and fortunate to be able to be in this position and have a chance to do this. You do not deserve this.
Oh, wow.
But we started, I think we flew out to San Diego with about 220 guys at that point in time to go to go into Coronado. And then at that point too, you're not even at first phase. So we're waiting for the class to begin, and then you go through a 4-week, we call it INDOC or indoctrination course, where you're starting to learn the implements and some of the instruction of first phase. Okay. So you're doing a couple, handful of PTs with the log. You're working through a couple different things with the boats of how to properly, pick it up, when you put the boat on your head, and how to put it back down, and that's just a repetition. So it sounds like the
log and the boat are very integral to training.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah. It's surprising how demanding the boats on heads are. How such a I don't know the best way to describe it too. Just like a primal a primal activity.
Yeah.
And just very intense.
So describe that. You've got, I believe you break out by height, right?
Yes.
You can't have a 5 foot.
You'd be a part of the Giants.
Okay. The big crew?
Yeah, the Giants. Yeah. And then you have the Smurfs all the way at the other end of the spectrum.
So how many people are typically hoisting the boat, carrying it? How many are on that?
Well, we'd always joke because the Smurfs all the way up until the tail end, closer to the Giants, would all have 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'd have 3 and 3 on each side. So you'd have kind of, they call it, the 1, 2, and 3, and then you have the guy in the middle as well.
Okay.
So when you got up to the Giants end, that's where the numbers to get everybody equal across the boat crew, we ended up with 6 people.
Okay.
And so the argument was, we would always laugh, being like, well, you guys always got 7.
Yeah.
That's so much easier for you. We're like, well, you guys are twice our size.
Yeah.
We've got a 50, 75 pounds on us. You can carry the weight equally among 6 people versus our 7.
And what is the number one thing you learn from the boat and what you're carrying, what you're lifting?
I think how to suffer well.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a group, though, right? Because now if one fails, the boat falls, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it's chaotic too.
Okay.
It's a storm under that boat, and everything is happening so quickly, so fast, and high volume in the sense of, everybody's yelling at you. The instructors are chasing you. They're right there, hounding you. And you really learn how to suffer well is the best way to put it, and how to suffer well as a team.
Never heard before. That's a great mentality.
That was something that I had a mentor who would help me through the process of getting ready for buds and the whole process, and that was always something that stuck with him throughout his military career in the SEAL teams, and always stuck with me is suffer well.
So that's helpful in the business world. Like if the coffee machine runs out of creamer, right? You just got to deal with it.
You just got to deal with it.
So you're prepared.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. But that's how. Guys drop out of the boat. People will quit mid boat.
Oh my gosh.
When you're running, they'll fall out. The instructors will pull them, and then now you're down to 5, and so you got to figure it out in real time, and you got to keep moving forward.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so there's no stopping.
And
so you just continue to move forward, continue to press on.
So then what happened as you're going through this?
So
some big challenges here.
Yeah. So you go through that initial 4-week indoctrination course, and you're also learning, you're running the soft sand, you're running the hard sand, you're doing some pool work, you're doing some, light, I think it might've been some light drown proofing and knot tying. You're running the obstacle course, learning how to navigate the obstacle course, because there's specific ways and movements and functions to be successful in the obstacle course, and how they want you to do it as well. Okay. This is how I'm going to pull up for this one here. This is how I go down the slide for life.
Okay.
Down the road. So you're learning all this in preparation for first phase. And so when you finally get that, so you have to kind of pass again, multiple tests and rungs to get the next ticket to go into first phase. So ultimately my first phase, so we had 3 of them in total. Yeah. And very fortunate, I didn't deserve, a single one of them, right? That was always the mentality and always the mindset there. But the first phase, incredible time. It's a shot out of a cannon. And everything is new. Everything, again, just very high volume, very intense, and just go. And I remember thinking the movie The Gladiator, with Marcus Aurelius, and that was going back. Quick side note: the guy Jimmy Hatch, who was one of my mentors and helped me through this process. There was one book that he recommended that I read, and it was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
And on that opening cover, and it's basically it's a rambling of sense of his thoughts and a journal. It's a journal of his thoughts that he put down on paper, and it really, I think, just teaches you and makes you. It's very thought provoking of how to be a man, how to be a human being, and how to be a leader, how to be a father, how to be a husband, all the above, and just his thoughts put on paper. And in that opening, the cover of it, I think he had 3 different notes on there. One of those was suffer well.
All right.
Another one there was, show up at the right time, at the right place with the right gear.
Perfect.
And that was something that has always stuck with me too. And something that my dad says is if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're forgotten.
All right.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that was always something that we held to. But going to the movie The Gladiator, we're sitting back, this is the first day of first days, and it's infamous. You run out onto the grinder, and this is where you start doing PT, and so this is your first taste of first days.
Yeah.
And it's just chaotic. All the instructors are yelling, and it's wild. You're doing burpees, you're doing flutter kicks, you're doing sit-ups, push-ups, squats, anything, and they're spraying you with hoses. It's just a shock, to scare you. And you're sitting behind this, we called it the pit. So it was between these cages and the sand dunes, and it was this like sidewalk out of their mind, and just ready to go and scared, of like, what is behind this gate? What's behind the corner here into the grinder? And then you just, the OIC, the officer in charge, just calls it out, and you just run in, and then you find your spot on the little duck feet, in the frog feet there, on the grinder, and it's just full sprint go.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Just anything called the grind or something.
Yes. They grind it into you. But ultimately, so that first class, everything was going really well and having a great time, and passing through all the different tests, and we had failures along the way. And I remember that first run, the first 4-mile run, unbeknownst to us, and who knows what it was, but it felt like that they had started the time clock already, and we hadn't even ran yet. So the passing time is 4 miles for 32 minutes.
Okay.
On the beach, you're on the hard packed sand on the water's edge, but it's still, there's some unevenness there. You're running in pants and boots and a t-shirt. And when you get to the 2-mile turnaround, you throw your shirt off into the back of the truck so that they know that you made the turnaround mark.
Oh, okay.
But so we had thought that they had already started the time. They had already started the stopwatch like 4 minutes early.
Oh,
so they intentionally failed us to see how everybody was going to react and respond. And that's where we started to see, in that same kind of process on the obstacle course, on the swim, the guys who were the fastest swimmers, fastest runners, fastest at the obstacle course were typically the ones that bowed out earliest.
Really?
Yep. And so because if they failed that evolution, they weren't necessarily, these were D1 athletes. These were professional athletes that may not have been used to failing or overcoming different types of adversity.
It's an interesting, because you think if they're that successful, they haven't really failed for the most part. Yeah.
Or what happens when you do fail.
Yeah.
So usually, okay, hey, we'll get them next time, right? And you pass that finish line and you failed, and then now you're getting beat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're doing, some type of physical activity. And one of the most grueling ones that we always hated was they called it buddy berm sprints. So you pick. So if you and me we were side by side, we passed the run, we're in a line, we're on the water's edge, and then everybody would be shuffling to the, all right, buddy berm sprints, here we go. So you would pick the guy closest to you, and you try to line up equal weight, because you didn't want to be paired with a guy who was 5'6", 150 pounds, and Chris Greco's 215. 6'2", 6'3", however tall you are, and it would just be very uneven, right? If he's carrying you, it's not as fair. So you would try to get with equal guys, but you would throw the guy on your back in like a fireman's carry. And there was a big berm, a big sand dune that was created there on the beach there. And you would run up to the top of the sand dune and run back down with this guy on your back, and then swap out. And then he would run, and this would just felt like it would go on forever.
Oh my God.
And just your legs.
Stopping, right?
You don't know.
That's
exactly.
One of their things. Is
exactly. And they would love to say,
right?
they'd love to say, we could be here all day. We could be here all night. And it gets in your head, and it really starts to mess with you of just like, could we really be here all night?
Yeah.
And of course, no, they got to go home and they got to sleep too, and they have to go see their families. But in the moment, you're like, we could be here all night.
Oh my God.
And that's where guys would be like, I can't take it anymore. This is out. But everybody who is there can physically do all of the evolutions.
So that's the whole premise of all the training is, it's just you're mentally going to stop.
Yeah. Or, right, what happened to me, something physical happened. You break something. Exactly.
So tell us about the first incident.
So the first class I was in, going into Hell Week, and we were running the boats back up, boats on heads, almost what felt like we were in Mexico.
Yeah.
We had gotten pushed too far south. You can't go past the fence there. But we were running back north.
We've seen that fence lately.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it is real. It goes along the whole, it's pretty far, pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And it stretches out into the water too.
Yeah.
The fence does there. So we're running back, and it was a big storm, and there's rain, and there's sand, and there's salt. And so my eyes, we're doing the sugar cookie, and you don't want to miss an inch on your body, because if you do, and they spot you, you got to go do it again. You got to run back
What's
down.
the sugar cookie?
So that's when you get wet and sandy.
Oh, okay.
So you run into the water, you get fully wet, you got to dive in, get everything, run back out. You're soaking wet. You've got your uniform and your boots on, and then you get into the soft sand, and then you're rolling around like a dog, and covering your head, covering your face, arms, hands, everything. Every inch of your body needs to be sandy.
Okay.
And if there's a missing spot, guess what? You got to go do it again. And they're monitoring you. So you're throwing sand in your eyes. It's everywhere. It's in your mouth. It's in your nose. It's in your ears. And then the chafing starts to hit in, and that starts to get really bad. So everybody's just raw.
Yeah. I mean, you think of it, now that you're out of the sugar cookie world, you realize they're teaching you so many things just with that simple element. First, you've got to listen to instruction.
Correct.
No shortcut.
Exactly.
Do it right or do it again.
Yeah, do it right the first time.
And then you're also obviously learning how to physically deal with anything.
Suffer well. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And there was a really great...
There's a reason for
a method to the madness. Just like my dad had his method to the madness. There was a method to the madness. And I remember we were eating this, again, side story here, but there was a very well-known seal, and I can't remember his name, but he had shown up randomly one morning for breakfast out at this spot where we would all hang out and kind of dry out like fish, So we're soaking wet. We've just eaten breakfast. Now we're going to go dry out. We had 20 minutes. Yeah. He comes out, and we didn't know this, but he had a trident in his hand. And so he pulls a thing of sand up on the beach and starts to pour water over the sand. And while he's telling us, he's just talking about how, friction and grit and pain and suffering with this process comes out on the other end, and following instruction, a well-polished and ready for war, per individual human. And so he's pouring and we don't know that there's anything in his hand other than sand. He's pouring the water, and he's talking about the sand and the water and how this breaks away, and the water breaks away. And that's kind of the oil and the motion of this process. And then comes out a shiny trident.
Oh my gosh.
And we're all just blown away, like, this is why we're here. Yeah. Right. And this is why, the trust in the process. And this is their process is to throw you down, have this grit, beat you down. But in this process, this water is going to work through the fluidity and come out with a nice shiny thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But so we're getting wet and sandy that morning. It's Monday morning there in Hell Week, and so still very early on, and getting wet and sandy. And we're sitting down to eat MREs, so these meal ready to eats for breakfast. Somewhere down there close to Mexico, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, wait a second. With my eyes, I can't see anything. Like, it's very, very hazy, very, very foggy. And I look over at my buddy, and I'm like, hey, does something look off? And he's like, holy cow. He's like, yeah, your eyes are milky white.
Oh.
And at that time, a corpsman, so a medical person, corpsman, comes over, and they're just doing checks on everybody down the line eating. We have some downtime. They're making sure everybody's okay, nothing's broken. Everybody's fine. Nobody has hypothermia. Yeah. And I look up at him, and at that time too, he's just like, "You got to come with me."
Oh, jeez.
And so I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I'm like, "But I know I can't see anything." Yeah. And they always say too, it's life, limb, or eyesight. Those are kind of the big things where, okay, we need to pull you. Yeah. We need something. We need to take a pause here if it involves any type of negative impact to life, limb, or eyesight. So he takes me to the truck, and they're literally, they have a water bottle, and they're just squirting my water, and they're like, hold your eyes open. And I'm like, I'm trying, They're just squirting my eyes with this water, and they're just staying milky white. And they're like, we got to take you back to the compound and take you into the medical building and try to figure this out. They get in there, they start squirting me in the eyes again. They still can't figure it out. They're like, we have to take you to the local hospital out in town, Balboa Hospital, the Navy hospital, to figure this out. So they throw PJs on me. I've got, like sweats on, still half asleep and just, cold, wet, and tired.
Oh, yeah.
And so they take me to the hospital. They drive me there. And I remember falling asleep in the waiting room. And there's all these other Navy people there at the time. And they're like, why is this guy sleeping in this chair? and somebody like wakes me up on the shoulder, it's just being sleep deprived, and they pull me in, and ultimately, so they tell me that I'm legally blind, based on the eye test. And so that I spent the next couple hours flushing my eyes out with saline and taking like a miniature spoon and carving sand out of my eyes. So at that point in time, I had missed too much time, too many hours. 4 hours, I think, was the cutoff. If you miss 4 hours in Hell Week based on something medical, you have to go back. Then you're not continuing.
You're done?
You're done. Yep, you're done. So we had gotten all this way. And at that point in time, I didn't know what was next. And I was just so mentally and physically defeated, deflated, and I remember, calling my parents and like crumbling to my knees in the barracks and saying, I didn't make it. And this is it.
Gosh.
I'm done.
And this is beyond your control.
Beyond your control.
It's not like you couldn't do another sit-up.
Yeah, exactly.
Truly.
I know. So I was legally blind for 24 hours. And then ultimately, thank goodness, my eyesight came back and I was perfectly fine. But I thought that was it. I was like, there's no second chance here. This is all I've got. And I didn't make it. And this is everything that I had worked for and set out for. And now the future is unknown. Then at that point, so I didn't know this. They sit you before a board of SEALs and evaluate your performance, your peer reviews, and your tenacity and willingness to go again. And so,
how soon after the hospital is this?
Gosh, I think it had been probably like once they finished Hell Week. I mean, it could have been like a week or two afterwards. Okay. Yeah, I think something like that of shifting through and sifting out of what was going to happen next and waiting for them to sit. Just in the barracks.
In the Buds barracks.
Yes. Yeah.
So the guys are still working.
They're still going. Yeah, they're still out there, and I'm there, and I'm watching them on the beach and watching, and that fast forward to when you get rolled back, as they call it, you become a rollback. You're sitting in this phase called PTRR, which is, I think it stands for, it's like physical therapy, rest and remediation, or rehab and something of that nature. But you're in this purgatory confinement where every day is like Groundhog Day. And so watching your buddies progress through the next week, the next phase, second phase, third phase, that was, to me, more mentally hard on myself than any of the training that we had gone through.
Oh my God.
Of just being stuck and not moving forward. And you're right. Everything's about continue to move forward, keep progressing, keep the momentum, keep going. And that was the hardest, of just being like, I'm not even in first stage. I got to start back over again. Yeah. So I sit before the board and they were like, hey, this has been good. We know that this was out of your control. You've had great test times, and a big component of the training is peer evaluations, peer reviews. So everybody does a review on their peers, and they want to know that from your peers that you are the right fit, you're the right candidate for this program and for the SEAL teams. So they take that very, very seriously. And I had great peer reviews. And so that, I think, really helped me afford me another opportunity for them to give me that opportunity to go again. Yes.
So then you don't jump in.
No, you got to wait for
6. No, you're back.
You're back. And so we had to start all the way back over at that 4-week indoctrination course. So that
with a fresh 200.
Fresh 200. Yeah, fresh 200 guys. Yeah. So that was, and to think of the 220 that we started with, and the guys were just all studs who made it through that first Hell Week. And we jokingly say that was the last hard Hell Week that there was, right? Kidding. But there were 17 that made it through that Hell Week at the end that were there on Friday out of 220 guys.
17 become SEALs.
So no, so not necessarily. Okay. So that was just 17 who had passed and made it through Hell Week. And then after Hell Week, there's still another 3 weeks of first phase, and then you go to second phase, then you go to third phase, and then you go to SQT, SEAL qualification training, for another 6 months. And if you pass that, then you become a SEAL. You get pinned and you have the Trident. So there was, out of that 17, there was guys who didn't make it through and didn't become, but they were physically and mentally there, and capable, and they just made it through one of the hardest things that they've ever done in their life. But something out of their control. They broke something. They didn't pass a pistol qualification shooting test. They, whatever it may be, something came up, something happened where not all those 17 became SEALs.
Okay.
Yeah. So it whittled even further down.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have the most well-trained people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's
really,
incredible. It's really cool to see, firsthand too. Well, so I got the chance to go for a second try.
All right.
Start over at the 4-week indoctrination, pass through that again, and then go to class up into the first phase of the second class again. So I was always terrible at running. I hated running. I grew up surfing, grew up in the water, so spent very limited time running. But I was fast. I could sprint pretty well, but I hated long distance running. And so I was always slower on those times, but would pass.
What is long distance for that training?
You are. It seems like you are running all day, every day. Like it does not stop, and you're doing this bud shuffle, which becomes comical at some point too, because you're trying to fake out. If they see you not running and this running, so you're literally just shuffling your feet and you're moving your arms like this to make it look like you're running, because they're just circling the compound, and there's instructors everywhere. Okay, this instructor's going to grab lunch, and then they spot you, and then we saw that you guys were not running. And so we're going to beat you that much harder for this next evolution. So you do this fake, bud shuffle that became really, and you have a pack on your back too with all your gear. It doesn't weigh too much, but it's your wetsuit, it's your fins, it's your mask, it's, swim shorts, the little UDT shorts, the tan ones that you would wear, super skimpy.
Isn't there something where they tell you to run a mile and then you run it, and then they tell you, all right, run another mile. Like you never know how many you're going to run.
There's
varieties of these.
All varieties. Okay. Yeah, exactly. I think another one that would always be really mentally hard was, we called it chase the truck. And it was usually going from what we would call the land side or the dry side of the base, when we would do a pool evolution, to the wet side, to the ocean side of the base. And so they would be like, all right, chase the truck. And you're like, oh my gosh, we had just gotten out of the pool. You have your packs on with all your gear. Again, not too much weight. And you're all 220 guys, right, in a line trying to keep up with this truck. And they're speeding up, they're slowing down, they're speeding up, they're taking right turns, they're taking left turns, and you don't know when that is going to stop. And you're just following the truck, and they're going back and forth, stopping, starting, and they're laughing the whole time too. Yeah. They're like, this is great. And so that was hard, and into the boats on heads, that, where we did ruck runs too, where you didn't necessarily know where that was going to stop. And they would just, you would do another circle. And circle back around on this soft sand run where they would call demo pits, and that where you would just have no clue, right? We could be here all day. We don't know when it's going to stop. And so that they would try to that would be a mental game too of, hey, we're 100 yards out from the finish line. I can't wait for this to be done. I'm going to get some water, going to stretch out, going to go jump in the ocean and cool off. And that was a part of their process too, right? To heat strokes versus hypothermia, getting you in and out of the water if it's too hot or too cold. And but then they would circle back around. We're going for loaded up again. I can't remember what they said. They said rig for pain, or like, let's. Do
you get to the point where even if you see what you think is the finish line, you're like, probably not.
Yeah.
Like, do you get to that point where you're no longer thinking something's going to be done, where you just say, I'm just going to keep doing this?
Yeah, you definitely do. And there was a point in time where I still vividly remember, and I think it was laying down in the ocean for surf torture, where just something just kind of clicked. It was just like, it doesn't matter like how long, and not having that expectation in your mind any longer of, I am just going to continue to move forward and press on no matter what's in front of me.
Love that. So it works.
It works. Yeah, it does. Yeah. And so there was this turning point in your mind where, because it's so easy for us to be like, oh, the finish line is right there. Right. Yeah. And be like, okay, well, we might circle back.
No,
we might do this again.
Yeah.
And so you just mentally just kind of go numb and just block that out. And then just whatever's thrown at me, I'm just going to continue to go.
Yeah. That's, in a much, much simpler world, in the investment world. I always talk with our clients about, there's no finish line for what we do for them.
Correct.
Because they'll say, how did you do this quarter? How's your 1 year or your 3 year number?
It's got to be better and better.
It's XYZ, but we're back at work this morning. And in the next 7 hours, we're still working because there's no finish line. Yeah. So it really prepares you for life, right?
Yes, it does.
You're not done raising your kids.
No.
You're not done with your own health and your own learning as well.
Absolutely.
So now you're running a lot.
Yes. Yeah. So again, I hated running. It was just awful. It's just mind numbing, and I just hated it. It was just painful, jarring on my knees and everything.
So you're not in a good shoe, a nice sneaker.
No, you're not. No. You are in a flexible boot.
Oh, okay.
And so we would get so creative with these boots too, is guys would end up dissecting the boot. So there was a rod that ran through the sole of the boot. And so you'd have all this voodoo magic, right?
Okay.
That guys would be like, oh, well, I heard that I could take out the rod. And so literally they would melt down the boots with a heat gun and rip open the soles and then take out this rod that was for support in the boot. And then now the boot would just fold back onto itself. And it was super flexible. I didn't do that. I'm like, oh, it is what it is.
Yeah.
The boot is. I'm not going to just take this thing apart. But
the creativity.
Yes, a lot of. So that's what there's just so much creativity and so much comedy in this process too. Where guys, there was a saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. So we would come up with just very creative ways to kind of scheme and work our way around certain things or hide out in certain ways and reserve energy and, knowing what could be next. And that's where going into the second class, I had a loose idea of what was to come. Yeah. And so that's, where the first class, you didn't know when things were going to stop, or you didn't. Cycle was next, and so in the second class it became easier for me. I was like, okay, I know
part of the point of it, right?
Exactly. Yep. So got rolled back, did the 4 week of indoctrination, and then went to the first phase. Ultimately, what happened there in the third week, so just before Hell Week, I was running a timed 4-mile run, and we had shifted. The beach had gotten washed out from a big storm, so there was no area to run on hard packed sand on the beach for the timed 4 miles. So they shifted it to the highway. There was like an A1A, basically, like a beach boulevard that ran up and down between, they called it the Strand in Coronado there. And there was like a walking trail, a biking trail. So they had marked out 2 miles down, 2 miles back on pavement, boots, at pants, everything. And so here I am, and everybody has stress fractures really from the hips down, just from the compounding, the stress, the repetition, the continuous running, the bud shuffle, even, you're constantly moving, and everybody has these stress fractures. So naturally, I think I had some stress fractures in my body. And so we were now running on hard pavement for this time 4-mile run. And I hit the 2-mile turnaround, and I started to feel like, ooh, like this is different. There's a little pain here, but I'm hopped up on adrenaline and I'm needing to pass this run, and I hate running. So I'm like, let me just get through this. And so I came across the finish line. Ironically, it was my best timed 4-mile run. And I think I just wanted to get across the finish line and be done. But as soon as I came across that finish line and I stopped, all the pain came down to my right leg, and I just collapsed. And I didn't really know what was going on, but I'm like, something's up. And so my buddies throw me up, on one on each side, help me hobble to breakfast. That was directly after
before breakfast.
Yes, this was before breakfast.
A little 4-mile.
Yeah, a little 4-mile time run before breakfast to get the heart working. To get the day going. And so we go to breakfast. I'm like, something's still not right. And so I go out to where we would dry out like fish, and I had my leg up, elevated. I'm like, maybe I just need to elevate this. I need the blood flow to come back down, and something's not right. But still, something felt off. So we were going to our next evolution, and I could barely walk at that time. So they see me and they're like, what's the matter? And guess what? It's boats on heads today. So are you trying to not do boats on heads? I'm like, I'm trying to do boats on heads. Let's do this, but I can't walk. And they're like, all right, fine, we'll take you to medical. So they take me into medical, and I'm in there.
And now you got 4 hours. They got to figure this out.
Yes. So that's in Hell Week. Okay. And so this, I think, you've got a little bit more time to see what's happening. And I remember I got into medical, and they're like, it's boats on heads day. You are trying to get out of boats on heads. Oh. I'm like, I am not trying to get out of boats on heads. I actually enjoyed boats on heads. Yeah. Like it was, you just feel like all that is man during boats on heads, and logs too. You're just, when you were out there and performing, it's an incredible euphoria, and it's just, it gives you kind of level up, you elevate too. So they're like, all right, well, stand on one leg and jump up and down. And this is on my right leg. And so I'm jumping up and down on my right leg. And I'm like, yeah, that hurts.
They haven't x-rayed you?
Not yet. That was not in the cards quite yet. They were trying to see if I was faking and if I was making this up. So I'm jumping up and down on my right leg, one-legged, jumping up and down. I'm like, yes, I can barely do this and this hurts. And I go, okay, fine. We will give you an x-ray. And it was like we really don't want to do this. Yeah. And I was like, just give me an x-ray. I think my leg is broken. And they're like, we think you're making it up. So they throw me in the x-ray machine. Of course, I have nothing on. There's no lead. There's no steel to block anything. They just throw you right in there. Just good old Navy medicine. And they come out. And I remember seeing the corpsman and his eyes lit up.
Oh my.
And he's like, oh my gosh, because he's like, what did I do? In the sense of I had this guy jumping up and down. So come to find out, my right leg was broken down by my ankle and the fibula.
Oh my.
So that was broken. That was separated there. And he's like, you were right.
Oh, geez.
And I am so sorry.
Oh my.
And he's like, your leg is broken and you're not going to continue with this class.
Darn.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, again, like deflated, but I was like, maybe I'll get another chance. Maybe we'll see.
Wow.
So at that point, again, they put an air boot cast on. I've got to go through this PT program with the medical team and go through their whole process, go back to PTRR. I'm watching all of my buddies go into Hell Week, progress through, go into second phase. I'm still stuck. I'm still there. And again, that was the most mentally draining, the hardest part mentally was watching everybody progress and be stagnant.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I go before another board and they're like, you did it again. You got hurt again. What is going on? But your tests are great. Your physical times are great. Your peer evals reviews are still great. And I remember they had asked me at that point in time, like, do you want to do this again? I'm like, I've got nothing better to do.
Yeah.
I guess.
I got the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. What's the worst that could happen?
You're an instructor now.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So I was like, absolutely. Of course I want to go again. This is what I want to do. So I go through.
Do you know if this has happened to people a third attempt?
So there was 2 other guys. So during my tenure there was 2 other guys, one who was a really, really good friend who got 3 chances as well.
Wow.
There was one other guy who was an officer who kept getting this condition called SIPE, swimmer's induced pulmonary edema.
Okay.
And so you see that commonly in buds and then in highly performing, I think, triathletes where there's water exposure. And so what happens is your lungs fill up with blood and you start to drown in your own blood and you start coughing up your own blood.
Okay.
And so, funny counteracting measure is guys would take Viagra to counteract the symptoms of SIPE to help suppress the blood flow and put it into other areas of your body. So guys would just be popping Viagra.
Oh my gosh. Who figured that out?
I know. It's hilarious. And there was some type of like goji berry too, that voodoo magic that they said would work. It didn't work. But so that other guy, he was an officer. I think he got 3 or 4 tries too, because he was just such a high performer, such a stud, and just such a leader too. Incredible individual. They gave him, I think, 3 or 4 chances, and they ended up they said, okay, at his last class, they ended up removing him from training ultimately, but his last class, they're like, we're going to let you've already done the first 3 weeks 3 times.
Yeah.
We're going to, this is never seen before. We're going to let you skip the first 3 weeks, and we're just going to drop you right into, or really it was like the last week, and then let you go right into Hell Week. Ultimately, he ended up getting SIPE again.
Oh my gosh.
The 4th time, and they're like, hey, we can't. There's nothing else we can do. We tried.
Your body's just not built for that.
Yeah. So it was humbling to have 3 opportunities and to be awarded that. I mean, that was incredible, and I was very
What
fortunate.
happened on the 3rd?
The 3rd one, yes. So good old Navy medicine, right? Yeah. So I go through the physical therapy, all the rehab, and I'm running. I'm back up to full steam, full speed. And they're like, you're good to go. And I'm like, well, shouldn't we x-ray this before I go back in? No, you're passing all the times. Like, you're good. You're good. You're solid.
Oh, no.
So I class back up into this next class, go through 3 weeks of first phase again. And then I ended up breaking my left leg. So the left tibia, the other tibia. So I accounted for it. It was like I overcompensated. So and come to find out, so at the end of that too, when I broke the left leg, they x-rayed, they scanned like basically my entire body and like what else is broken.
Yeah.
And come to find out, my right leg was never fully healed when they put me back in.
So you were putting all that weight on the
on the left end, overcompensating and putting that over. And again, it was just it was unfortunate. We all had the stress fractures, and those stress fractures just completed. And I think it was because of the compounding too of class 1, class 2, class 3, where it all came together.
That is great. I mean, you got to think of the mental fortitude you have as well to get to that point. How much time has elapsed?
Almost like 3 years.
Oh my God. And you're in Coronado the whole time.
Yeah, just living the dream.
Working your tail off, something breaks.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Exactly.
3 years of self-torture.
Yes.
For that goal.
But I mean, it was seriously like, it was the best years.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. And, getting to be with so many unique guys in all walks of life and all different stories.
Yeah.
And, it was such a cool melting pot from across the country and unique abilities and just and everybody's in there together. And again, officer versus enlisted, we're all there.
Yeah.
Everybody's together doing the same thing and going through the same suffering and the same pain and the same trials and tribulations. And so it was so like the guys, the core, you really, everybody, you can trust in one another and everybody has their back. And that's something that has been very hard to find in the civilian sector.
Sure.
And kind of getting out. And that was a big, again, mentally was very difficult when getting out and trying to find the path and reinvention and how do I mirror that same level of like respect and camaraderie that we had going through this training with some of the close guys.
Because you think of that's what now in the business world, you try and figure out who's going to work together on your team, who's going to lift each other up. Yeah. But we don't have the boats on heads to really, there's
to suffer through it.
Some corporations try some half-day training. Yeah. And as best you can, but that is amazing, the world you were in. Mm-hmm, and if you now you run a firm and you're building a team, how can you try and replicate that in the business world?
I think it's like intuition, and really trying to see through, but also like testing people, and putting them into a position of discomfort and putting them into a position where there's going to be a fork in the road. They're either going to, turn left, turn right, or continue to move forward. And let's put this in front of them to see how they react and see how they act, and we'll find out. And we trust in that process. Just as it was with going through that training. Trust in the process. Put some roadblock, some type of adversity in front of them, and see how they traverse it.
I think now it all makes sense of why, as we're still getting through COVID, and you're having a baby, you decide to start out your own business on your own, Wheeler Wealth. Most people would think that's insanity, but I think it pales compared to everything else.
I know, this is all easy. This is a piece of cake. In reality, in retrospect, right? So April of 2024 is when we started Wheeler Wealth. We had our third son in January of 2024. So he's just a couple months old. And then we decided to buy and move into a new house in April of 2024. So we just pulled the trifecta of just like new baby, new house, new job, starting this business on our own. And I just was like, well, you know what? I mean, there's no better time than now.
No, I love it.
And let's do it. And then hopefully, a year from now, things will look a lot different, and be a little bit more manageable.
And I think, I hope your clients, if they hear this, they can see like what they get from Wheeler Wealth and the team that you're building. And I just see you're doing so many things creatively in the community to find, business partners, referrals, because the investment world's so dependent on good referrals.
And good people.
You've earned those, by the way. And I think it's amazing. But your story is phenomenal. I'm glad you're able to share it with us today on Beyond the Break. And I think you've been in enough breaks, enough whitewater. I mean, because don't you like live in the 2 feet of ocean area on your knees a lot? When you're training?
The surf torture.
So
exactly.
I hope the title of the podcast doesn't provide too many flashbacks.
Only good ones.
Well, it is amazing. There's so many stories we hear about Navy SEALs who who were career Navy SEALs
Mm-hmm.
and the great things they do. And I think today you gave us a glimpse into why they're so successful and why as Americans we have the best trained men and women in the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, your body had 3 unique breaks, but mentally you were there, and physically, you had all the wonderful basics. And I think you're in great shape to be a great father and a great business leader going forward. But thanks for sharing your story.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. We'll see you next time on Beyond the Break.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Break. If this conversation brought you value, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. We've got more real stories, sharp insights, and powerful turning points coming your way. See you next time.